Yeah, I'm good.
Good, good. And Falguni?
Jai Jinendra Manaji, I'm from Virginia, Richmond, Virginia.
Virginia, very good. And Shibani? Jai Jinain?
Jai Jinendra.
Great. So, Jai Jinain, everyone, I think we will get started. And so, Kinjal, if you would like to, start with Namokar Mantra, and then have a conversation on some of the things that we've talked about. So, yeah.
Jai Jinendra, everybody. Om Namo Arihantanam. Om Namo Siddhanam. Om Namo Ayariyanam. Om Namo Uvachayanam. Namo Loe Savasahunam. Eso Panchanamukaro. Pavapanasanam Mangalanancha Savvesim Padamam Havai Mangalam Padamam Havai Mangalam.
Great. Jai Jinain, everyone. How is everyone doing post Diwali? Any thoughts, comments from people? Things going on at the center? Anything exciting, new? Kushalji?
I think we have some new people also, right?
Yeah. If some of the new folks would like to introduce themselves, or maybe we can just quickly with small groups so we can do that. So Shibani, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Jai Jinendra, this is Shibani. I'm a bachelor teacher for high schoolers at the Jain Society of Chicago. And I don't know what else. Yeah.
Great, great.
Thanks.
And Khushbu? Go ahead. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, this is Khushbu from Memphis, Colleyville.
Okay, great. And Falguni?
Jai Jinendra, everybody. I'm Falguni. I'm from Richmond, Virginia, and I'm the Pathshala coordinator for the Richmond Sangh Pathshala. And I teach also high school kids and middle schoolers also.
Okay, great. And Kushalji? You're on mute. So you're on mute. Yes. Yeah, please go ahead.
Jai Jinendra, everybody. My name is Kushal Raj Singhvi. I moderate the level 7 class. Of course, it's from 18 through we have up to 55 also. There are two other moderators in the class, Avinash Patil and Dr. Mausami Shah.
Okay, great. And then Leena Shah, Leena ji, you're on. If you unmute and introduce yourself.
I'm Leena Shah, and I teach the level 5 Pathshala, where the age is 13, 14. And I've been doing this for 22 years. And pretty much do a lot of workshops. We do a lot of participation with the groups. So the kids love it. And that's it. Love what I do.
Great, great. And then we'll have a lot of conversation on how do we better reach our students and ideas and sharing and steps forward. So great. And then Kinjal, would you like to introduce yourself?
Jai Jinendra, everybody. My name is Kinjal Mota, and I'm a Pathshala teacher in Houston, Texas right now. I used to teach with Falguni Bain. She has joined us today. So her and I have taught the same class together for 8 years. And I also am the coordinator for a USA Pathshala Teachers WhatsApp group. It's a WhatsApp group with a great deal of resources for all Pathshala teachers in the United States.
Great. And then also Pritesh, if you introduce yourself.
Certainly. Jai Jinendra, everybody. My name is Pritesh Mutha. I practice as a gastroenterologist. Currently, I'm in Houston, Houston, Texas. I was in Virginia before. I'm Kinjal's husband. And yeah, very excited to be part of this group and learning and sharing our experiences as Pathshala teacher and hoping that we can connect with our students better and take it to the next generation.
Great. And Shail? We've got new folks, so if you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, Shail, I am an entrepreneur based here in New York. And I'm here to learn from all of you and try to take it to my folks and my community here.
Great. And Preet Shah, I see.
Hello, I'm Prerit Shah, and I'm here. I'm a Pathshala teacher here at Jain Society of Houston. I teach 11th and 12th graders, so high school seniors and juniors. And I'm really happy to attend this workshop. I think there is a lot for us to learn, and I think collaborate. I think this is a great initiative, and I look forward to it. Because I can see this students. I think we need to present it in a way that they can connect with us. So definitely see the need for such a workshop. Thank you for organizing it.
Great, absolutely. And Pradeep Bhai and Darshna Ben, if you can like to introduce.
Okay,
You have to unmute. You have to unmute.
I'm Darshna Shah and from Chicago Pathshala. And I also teach like Shibani with Shibani, teach like high school students. And my, well, Pradeep is a little busy. So he's also in Chicago Pathshala teaching taking adult class, and he's a Pathshala coordinator.
Great. Pradeep, I just came back from a night shift. He's an emergency room doctor. So he's a little fatigued, but he's still joining and listening in. I think someone else is joining in. And Mayuri Shah, we're just doing introductions. And if you can just introduce yourself, and then we'll get started. And I'll have Vitika and Edwin also introduce themselves. Mayuri, would you? You're on mute. Yeah.
Yes. Hi, I'm Mayuri, and I'm from Houston Jain Center. And I have been teaching Jainism class 2. My students, kids are school grade 1st and 2nd. And it's a perfect age for the teaching. And as a profession, we run a business over here. And we are in Houston from last 5 years.
Great. And then I'll have Vitika introduce herself. She is a staff person helping with the long range planning committee and with some of our work. She's based in India. Vitika.
Jai Jinendra, everyone. I am Vitika Bajjatya and I'm based in India. I'm working as a supportive staff with Jaina Long Range Planning Committee and Jain Path. I also assist Pathshala teachers in Jain Path journey across the country, sorry. So it's like whenever you feel like that you need any help or anything, like you can just message me or call me, as I am getting the messages from everyone, and that's a great feedback also. So you can message me and contact me anytime whenever you need.
Great. And Edwin?
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Edwin, and Jai Jinendra to all. I'm basically an IT consultant based in Indore, and I've been working along with Dr. Jain from last 18 years now. And I mainly handle most of the projects for Dr. Jain here, along
Great.
with my other projects. Thank you.
Right. So Edwin has been phenomenal in making things possible and putting a lot of these ideas that we have into real life. So our conversation today, and it's again a small group advising, thinking through where and how the prime objective is to make Jainism relatable. We talked about this last week, and we really want to have a conversation about making Jainism relatable. And several areas, and I want to get some feedback and thinking on, but one of the questions that I want to begin with is a whole element and conversation about happiness. And we have, so I want to open it up. I want to open it up with the groups on the following matter. What do we think? How do we think about happiness? Because when I am thinking in a very broad term, if we want to make Jainism relatable, it has to be something that are tangible to our young people and so forth, and even to others. So maybe open conversation. What do people think? What is happiness for them? And then we'll get into the details of how do we tell others. Thoughts, comments on happiness? I'll start with you, Kinjal. Maybe we've talked about this a little bit. What do you think? What is happiness for you?
Happiness in general, I would say, if I have a day without getting angry or any of the negative thoughts, frustrated or worried or stressed out, if I have a day that is absent of those feelings, that is a very happy day for me. That's what I would define as happiness.
Okay. Good. Other people's thoughts on what's happiness, and then the question, what's happiness for you? And then what is happiness and state for Jainism?
I would,
to me,
I would say,
yeah,
I'm going.
Yes, I think Kushalji, you were saying, and then Leenaji up.
Yeah, I would, to me, happiness is a state of equanimity where my equilibrium is maintained with everybody around me.
Exactly. Beautiful. Okay. And Leenaji?
Yeah, so to me, happiness is, say, for example, if I'm really going to the class for Pathshala and I'm looking forward to it, next Sunday comes and I want to go, it makes me feel happy. So something that is very attractive, I guess, something that your mind really wants to learn, I call that an happiness. That makes me happy if I go there.
Absolutely. So if we had to say, have a conversation about happiness and Jainism, it is, what is the path? How does Jainism allow us to achieve happiness, and what is happiness in a way? And as we heard, the word equanimity. And so we spent about the past 3 years, so Yogan Bhai and I work with the Firodia Foundation and in Pune, and a museum is being constructed. And the third part of the museum is going to be called The Journey to Happiness, the Jain Way of Life. And the conversation is the following: achieving equanimity through the Jain way of life. So happiness in ways is equanimity, but how do we relate to our younger generation to understand? And so we know the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We know that there's the basic needs, psychological needs, and the self-esteem, self-realization needs. That was back then. We can bring it to more day-to-day. It is, happiness is, you have to have the basic health. There is affection, security. Then there is also purpose and then equanimity. And in fact, this is one of the exercises that we have there. And then there is also this whole idea, the contentment and equanimity. And there is the entire brain that plays into this happiness. And we go into these cycles of up and down, up and down. Equanimity is a way to achieve some of that. And then when we're talking about health, so healthy diet from the Jain way of perspective, yes, emotional well-being, affection, caring, managing our krodh, man, maya, lobh, right? So yes, emotional well-being, that's basically what our emotional well-being really talks about. And that's what Jainism is teaching us, the affection of that. Our security, and then we really need to put it into the physical security, financial security, relationship security. And so we're expanding the Jain thought in bringing all of these things together, and then having a purpose, significance, right? So we talk about Samyak Darshan, Samyak Gyan, Samyak Charit, that allows us that purpose. And then the equanimity, the contentment, the peace. But then how do we put all of this together? A simple acronym, HASI, can help us remember health, affection, security, significance, equanimity. But I think this slide is probably the most critical, and I want to get people's opinion on this thought process. Yeah. So when we talk about happiness, at one level, we can talk about present happiness. So there is pleasure in the taste of a chocolate or a smell of a rose. There is joy in us getting together at Diwali. But that is present and that is short-lived. So we can teach our children, look, happiness is there, but it is present. But then there is a broader outlook that we have to be looking at lasting happiness. The present happiness goes away. And that lasting happiness is that feeling of equanimity, that tranquility, that meditative, spiritual, and natural experience that can be there. And that's what in our present lives we seek. But then there are some of us, I'm not there yet, but who seek a higher. These are the monks. These are people who have a calling that is well beyond the present life, and they are looking for eternal happiness. And that eternal happiness, something that one can call bliss, nirvana, or moksha. So I'm going to pause with that, and we've got lots of other things to do, but I wanted to sort of share people's thoughts, comments, and experience on framing Jainism and what we seek in day-to-day life. And is this open for discussion for folks, is this something that is relatable to our young people? What do people think?
Yes, Dr. Jain. So I definitely think it's very relatable the way you put it out, the present happiness, like materialistic, the one we seek, then you categorize between lasting and eternal. I think it does really make a lot of sense. One additional wording, I think, from a Jain perspective that I think can be added is a sense of equanimity, peace, but along with the sense of independence as well, where you're no longer as much dependent upon things, external things, or external people or circumstances about being happy. And I think that can strike a lot to a lot of people, that yes, I can be independent, sense of independence.
Actually,
I just kind of
yes, please, absolutely. I'll just add to this, and I want to hear more. But the word Natmalji Tatia uses in his book is autonomy. It's beautifully said, but you said it correctly. Yes. So yes, Kushilji, yeah.
I just support that, yes, where it says that you are not dependent on external factors to keep you happy. Happiness is within. It has to come within. And that is what is everlasting happiness. If you're dependent on a variable outside, then everything is dependent. It doesn't become independent.
Yeah. Other people's comments and thoughts on this? And I use this as a very important example. And I use this as an example for us as teachers, as people who are going to frame the minds, structure the minds of young people to make things relatable. And so happiness is a generic term, but in this conversation in the past 5-10 minutes, what we did was we made happiness relatable to a young person. We've made it in the context of Jainism, and we have made it something that they can feel that they can strive for. If we had happiness as only as moksha, then they become despondent. They become to say it doesn't work. But when we put it in terms of equanimity and tranquility and independence, autonomy, as well as we put it in terms of, look, there are joys and pleasures in life, but understand that they are short-lived, that there is something that is longer lasting as well.
So this is Shail.
Please.
You know, one thought that I've tried to live by is that, you know, to be happy, you have to live in the moment, which means that you can't worry about the past because that makes you sad and depressed, you know. And you can't worry about the future because that makes you anxious. So you know, I think as I see how to relate that to the Jainism, I think the whole notion of forgiveness can help you with the past.
Yes.
And in the non-materialistic way of living can also free you of the future anxieties that you have as well. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah. And I think that element of living in the present, living in the moment, allows for the reaching of equanimity. And actually there are practices, we'll talk about practices which help us move further on this. So just now expanding on that whole conversation of how does Jainism reach that happiness, hasi, or the goal of equanimity, it comes through the mindful practice of our triple A's, ahimsa, anekantvad, aparigraha, and those come through our practices, individual practices of ahimsa, of anekantvad, and aparigraha, of forgiveness, of mindfulness, and of family relations. And so, yes, I just wanted to present that as an example of what happiness and how happiness can and does relate to our day-to-day. Any other comments on happiness? And if anyone had a chance to do the worksheet, let me take a moment now and see if people had a worksheet. I'm gonna that if you recall.
Comment, Dr. Jain.
I'm sorry.
I had a comment to make if that's
please go ahead. Yeah. Please.
So that pyramid was absolutely amazing, and thank you for sharing that pyramid. The first thing about pyramid was health, and that's so very important. And three of us being physicians here, that kind of shows how we can relate it so much. Now, the definition of happiness, independent, equanimity, it is somewhat relatable to high school kids, but elementary and middle school kids, for them, it becomes a little more theoretical than more practical. So that's something we have to, it can be made relatable, but then we have to do some practices, actions, some storytelling, some, those are the things we have to address on. But Jainism focuses a lot on food, and health and food are so tied in together. As a gastroenterologist and lifestyle medicine specialist, I can talk about this for long periods of time. And what has happened is we have focused on Jainism as Jain diet means just not eating roots. and we have ignored everything else. And even in just focusing on food, it's so important to understand and broaden our definition. The problem is we don't recognize that we are what we eat. When I asked kids, when I was teaching high school kids over there in Virginia, now I teach here, I asked them, how does your brain grow? Your brain was small and now it's grown bigger. How does it grow? And their answers actually startled me, amazed me, that they were like, oh, because of knowledge, maybe. I mean, they could not relate to the fact that what they are eating is what their brain is becoming. So their ingredient is coming from what they eat. So when they realized that what they truly eat is what they become, that made the food part a little more important than what they were giving it before. And second thing is, you do the eating part, we do it like 4 times a day, every single day, plus we go out, plus whenever we are meeting friends, we're discussing food. It's like food is such an integral part of our being. We're doing this all day long. So if we learn to impart Jainism in a way that is relatable to their day-to-day life, by using this food as method, as opposed to keeping food aside and saying that food has just been restricted to kitchen, use that as a tool to get to the principles of Jainism, that would be a different way wherein you can actually help them, move the path towards the path of equanimity. And what you eat impacts your thoughts. So that also either brings you closer to Jainism or takes you away from Jainism. So
I agree completely. And that's where I think we as Parshala teachers and leaders and thinkers in reassessing our Parshala is to see how we take those examples and elements that Pritesh is talking about and saying, think about this food and where it came from. I think Yogan Bhai may have joined also, and he's been a thinker on this a great deal. But how do we take one element? Imagine you take, say, a grape, and think about where it came from, what its carbon footprint, and how does it relate to Jain way of life. Yogan Bhai, if you wanted to comment or anything on that.
This is really good. I really like the thought about how I never realized that the high school kids could not relate to, we are what we eat. I think what we may need to do is, as a team, really connect what does it mean that we are what we eat. If we had some very specific, visceral definition of this, I think that would be really good. That's my only comment. Right.
Good. So a lot of that is in the Jain Way of Life book, and there's so that's one tool that's available. The other tool is the elevator pitch, and so in relating to help again, the idea, how do we relate to our young people, and it is to have a common way of describing a religion. And so the Long Range Planning Committee, Yogan Bhai and a team of others along with us put together. It's very simple. Jainism is religion, a way of life. Thousands of years, Jains have been practicing vegetarianism, yoga, meditation, environmentalism, words that they can relate with. 3 core practices: nonviolence. What does it mean? Compassion, forgiveness in our thought, speech, and action. And that is why we're vegetarian. Non-absolutism, respecting views, dialogue, harmony, non-possessiveness, balancing the needs and desires. And we're going to look at where all of these come from in the scriptures, and then going to that they manage our anger, ego, deceit, greed, the kashais, and then talking about the entire area of respecting all living beings and the interdependence that we had mentioned earlier. So that's sort of the framework on it. I want to take a few minutes and just as we took the happiness example and we said, how do we make Jainism relatable? I want to go again through the Jain path idea and expand on it a little bit more. And so we saw this before. What is our goal in life? Happiness, which is also equanimity and moksha. We talked about different types. And then we will spend a little bit of time talking about philosophies, the AAA principles and practices, how Samyak Darshan, Gyan, and Charit help us move there. And the theory of soul is in philosophy, the AAAs is in principles, and then the practices and how they come from the Tattva Sutra, and how the thinking in this model can be helpful for our young people. It is also critical to know how the Jain path ideas, some of these Jain way of life concepts are different from the traditional conversation that we have. Many of us have grown up and we know the dravs, we know the tattvas, we know asra, bandh, punya, pap. So that's a language that might be difficult for our youths, next generation. But it's the same thing though. It is the theory of life. What is biology different from jeev? What is chemistry different from pudgal? Physics, rest, motion, space, time. Then the theory of soul, theory of karma, theory of moksha. These are relatable terms if that is our objective in trying to move ahead. Same thing, love, respect, share, very relatable terms to our modern way of thinking. And then all of the practices as well. So before we go into a little more depth on looking at how theories can be more relatable, but any questions or comments on that from the group?
Yeah, I have one question. So my students, Pashala students, are 10 years old, 10, 11 years old. And I often get this question like, what are we going to do achieving moksha? Are we going to just sit there and doing nothing? So they I don't think they relate to moksha. And so I'm just looking for ideas that can maybe give them a glimpse what moksha is. Because in their mind, just sitting there doing nothing is boring.
Yes.
And that they don't want to go there.
Exactly. And so that is why even I, like I said before, am not ready to say that I want to achieve moksha, right? And it goes back to the previous conversation that we had, was the happiness we talked about. It is what we're looking for is happiness. And what we can say is, yes, there's moksha is eternal happiness, but equanimity is something that they can relate with. Tranquility, a meditative, natural experience. I think we need to help our children at that age realize that, look, you eat one piece of chocolate, oh, I feel pleasure. 2, more pleasure. 3, 4, 5, 4, content. I have contentment. 5, 6, oh, I feel not well. If I can't get chocolate, I feel, oh, need, and I lose that happiness. What Jainism tells us is that you can have a longer lasting happiness, equanimity, and tranquility in following the Jain practices. I don't think we need to be pushing nirvana or moksha at that level. What do others think?
Yeah, Dr. Jain, one other thing I was thinking about is to say that you can live a stress-free life. I think if we can relate that, then I think it brings the real life perspective back into their mind, that this is all about making our life stress-free and being more resilient. So stress-free, which is a negative connotation, but then being more resilient, which is positive connotation, that you will be able to go through your life in a much more resilient way, even among difficult situations. You will not be easily bogged down or get depressed. I think that adds a lot of value. So one time I was having a conversation with one of my Pathshala students who graduated like a long time back. He's in like working full time now. So one time I asked him that you've been through 12 years of Pathshala. what do you think about doing when you're stressful? Can you recall any Jain principles or anything like that? And he was completely quiet. He was like, all I can think of doing is just Namokar mantra. And that just stunned me. I'm like, you've been through Pathshala 12 years, and there is nothing that struck that could make that everlasting impression. And so I think at that point I realized that we need to make it more relatable, like you're saying,
Yes.
and these type of real life experiences.
So what I say is we need
I
to
just
add to their backpack, right? We need to add. We added Namokar mantra to their backpack. What if we added, meditation? We added other things to their backpack. Which are these practices that I want to go over? But Yogan Bhai, I think you had something.
Yeah, I just wanted to share. I teach level 6 here in Boston, and I start out the first class that we have. I say, you will not use the word soul, karma, God, any of these things, nirvana, moksha. We will have a conversation without using these words, so they can, root themselves in more practical way of life. And then just the other thing that I wanted to share is tomorrow we're having teachers training, and one of the things that we're talking about is Jain core. What are the things that we need to make sure that when the kids graduate, that their Jain core is strengthened, and what are the elements of the Jain core? And obviously a lot of things that are being discussed here will be incorporated into that.
Great.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to quickly add to that is oftentimes I know that when we use word soul, people think of it differently. But rather, instead of soul, I like to use word consciousness, which is what modern psychologists, psychologists who are actually teaching, like Dr. Jim Tucker, who are actually doing research on reincarnation and have actually proved, they use that term consciousness rather than soul, because soul gives a religious connotation. Consciousness brings a scientific connotation while conveying that no, there is something completely separate from our body which survives death, I think. And that's an important concept, I think.
Absolutely. So Prerit, you and Yogan Bhai are telepathically connected, because we just had a half hour to 45-minute conversation yesterday or day before on that very thing. Should we be using the word soul and versus consciousness? And I'll say this, I'll be honest, he was of the mindset we should be saying consciousness. I was still of the mindset that we should be using soul. But yes, both have their value, and they're critically important. So I want to have this conversation. You talked about stress-free, right? And this brings us to this very same conversation about how do we make ahimsa relatable, right? If I say, to our Pasha, you got to be more ahimsic. You have to follow principles of ahimsa. What does that mean? It's above their heads, even adults. It means that, look, you follow a diet that is rooted in avoiding as much harm to the environment, that we have a sense of overcoming anger. We have a tool. Forgiveness Day is a tool that we are believe in compassion. We have service for one another. Parasparo Jivanam Tattva Sutra 5.21 Sutra talks about service. We have the yoga and exercise, carefulness, thinking, our thought, speech, and action, and then not doing, as we talked about last time, violence to our bodies by either smoking or drinking or drugs, just avoiding those. And then again, what you mentioned, stress-free. So again, taking the principles, taking the philosophy and bringing them down to this level. Yeah. Thoughts, comments on this, and then we can talk about the other principles as well.
The beauty of this, Dr. Jain, is, everything is stress-free word encompasses all the other 7 factors.
Yes.
And you can put that under one title and divide them based on the pyramid that you talked about earlier. So that can be more interconnected and more relatable, and you're using one topic and connecting to the next topic to reach our final goal.
a huge amount of overlap, and there's as well overlap, and then sometimes we have to do specificity that we bring in the forgiveness in there. And then anekantvad. Let's talk about the practice of anekantvad. Open-mindedness, right? The fundamental idea that I don't have to be an absolute way. And your Parshala student said they were doing Namokar mantra. What if they had a Jain meditation that was ingrained as much as Namokar mantra? It doesn't take much for us to completely have our students figure this out in a way. What if Namokar mantra is a minute and there's a 5-minute Jain meditation? Each time, every day, they do it. They do it at the Pathshala, they do it at home, something like that. Whole idea of respect in broadly and where it comes from. Humility, like ego is way beyond imagination for what is a driver, but humility can do that. Deceit, overcoming deceit is straightforwardness. And yes, spiritual and scripture reading is what's written out in the Tattva Sutra and how it gets there. And the whole idea of equality and equity. So all related to Anekantvad. And then, yes, rituals have their role. So these words are relatable to our kids. And then lastly, finishing up with the final 8 of aparigraha, being able to talk openly about our needs and wants. I think this is an idea and concept that is always challenged. And then after 3 pieces of chocolate, I am content. Let us understand that. Yes, there is enjoyment and pleasure, but then there is also a contentment that is there. And then there is the whole element of austerities, which is similar to penance, and fasting, the food, and how it can play a role in us. And then, yes, controlling our sensual desires, understanding that lust and those things do not contribute to spiritual development. And at the end of life, the art of dying, and then as well as the art of giving, charity, and saving the planet. These practices will change in another 100 years. But for the past 2,000 years, they have helped us to achieve this and bring it to our religion perspective. So thoughts, comments on this from our group?
I just would like to remind, I don't know if last session I mentioned this, there is a very nice Hindi movie called Ek Cheez Milegi Wonderful.
Yes.
I don't know how many of you have seen that movie. If you have not, it is available on YouTube. It was made kind of a commercial movie.
Yeah.
Very, very nicely made to show that the 5 senses we talk about, without the physical sense, still you can get that satisfaction. And with that sense also, kind of sometimes you might miss it. For example, a blind person in UK does a painting of a landscape of a beach with different shades of blue color when he has never ever seen the colors. So the sense of touch helps. There they talk about how you can get, like you spoke about the candy, Dr. Manoj Jain, that how 1 candy is very nice, 2 is delicious, 3 is super, 4 is I don't think that great, 5 I'm kind of getting 6, 9, 10 I'm puking. So it's very nicely mentioned there in terms of Gulab Jamun. So that movie explains a lot of things, and we can all pick pieces and bits from that movie to help us to kind of further develop this program.
Absolutely. And so we want to relate what we are saying to our scriptures, and it all derives from the scriptures. So I talked about service. So it is a service comes from souls render service to one another, right? It defines our role, and it comes from the scriptures. And then we know that at a philosophical level, our scriptures provide us detail by detail. Theory of soul is chapter 2. Theory of life is chapter 5 in Tattva Sutra, karma and moksha as well. And then all of the details of the categories of truth as well is very relatable. before I want to spend another 5-10 minutes in taking the philosophy in more depth, any thoughts and comments from our group? Because I want to now we spend a lot of time on practices, and I want to deep dive into the philosophy and how we can make it relatable. Any thoughts or comments from the group? Okay,
To
great.
share one incident,
Please.
Manoj.
Ji.
We take assembly every day in Richmond Pathshala on Sundays whenever we have Pathshala. So, and we teach 5 minutes meditation that you mentioned earlier. And the kids, they enjoyed so much. So one day I just missed because of time constraints, I skipped the meditation. And the kids came up to me and told me later on that why we are not having meditation today. So I feel that the meditation and all those practices we can start at a very young age. So it will be like it's ingrained in them like Naukar Mantra.
Absolutely.
We do the same thing. We do the same thing at the Jain Center of Boston during our assembly. Not only kids, but the parents. And it seems from the comments we get back, this is the only 5 minutes in their whole month, because we do it, for 2 hours every month, that they find the most peace.
Yeah. And I'll say this, we have to be thinking about how we hardwire these practices within our kids, right? Just like we hardwire practicing doing Namokar mantra. It's hardwired. I woke up this morning, I got some stuff done, then I showered, then I went and I did Namokar mantra. Hardwired it. It was a prayer. I have been doing it since I was 2-3 years old as a child. And so if we had hardwired and begin to hardwire some of these practices, I think that's really, really important. Great. So I do want to spend a few minutes on, we've been spending practices, but I want to spend some time on the philosophy. And then I really want to also hear from Pradeep Bhai and Darshnaven and Kinjal and Pritesh about some of the challenges that we face in Pathshala, and we'll finish up with that. So when we are talking about the theories, the theory of life, so our philosophy in summary can be put into 4 major categories, 4 types of theories from Jainism. The theory of life is basically taking in science how we take species, genus, family, how we've ordered everything. In Jainism, there's an order as well. And it's completely amazing to me to realize that the way Jainism has divided between animals, you can look at it. It's very similar to what Jainism has done. Kids will know this, but when we show them, they will understand. The same thing that relates to this as well. And then we can go into the theory of soul. And what is the soul? And it has these qualities. They may have difficult understanding darshan gyan, but this awareness or consciousness, I think we talked about that earlier. Knowledge, energy, bliss, almost like electricity is that energy that it provides, and they can relate to the soul. And then yes, they're the mental, physical, and metaphysical elements of the soul as well. Then there's really complicated theory of karma. I won't go into it, but in the Jain Path book, we have details, models that can help people understand the body, the soul, and the karma particles, and how this whole process of karma works, the flow through thought, speech, and action, and then being related to the vices, the krodh, man, maya, lobh, and how that leads to the inflow of that as well. And then talking about how the intensity of the karmas matter. And then, yes, there's ghati, aghati karma, gets into a lot of details, but it lets them know that there's an entire process in the scriptures that talks about karmas coming in, karma's bonding, and then fruition of karma as they move out, depending. And then there is the whole cycle of karma, the soul, situation, and each time you have a choice. And that choice then leads to another set of karmas and how that cycle of karma works. And then lastly, we talk about liberation and then the path to liberation. Step one, not doing harm, finding joy and happiness, then finding equanimity, and then attaining and working on moksha. And so that's how, in summary, one can talk about. So wanted to share some of those things that are relatable and things that can our youth can benefit from. Other thoughts and comments from the group from this? Is this something that would work and help people in their teachings?
Sure, it's a very nice depictive way of explaining to younger and older. I'm pretty impressed with the model that has been put up for looking at attachment of karmic particles to the soul and the flutation of those in a different perspective, rather than ye karne se paap hoga, wo karne se punya hoga, you're going to acquire bad karmas and good karmas. This is more for the current analytical population, that the generation that is coming is more analytical than more, how do I put it, in terms of just accepting by word. They want everything. Why is that? What's the proof for that? I like the model, and I think it's a great representation of.
Right. And that's why we've purposely done that and related each one to back to the scriptures, right? Back to the scriptures, each practice back to the scriptures. So, I can share some more slides, but I wanted to really hear from some of the other folks as well. And maybe Kinjal and Pritesh, as well as Pradeep Bhai, Darshnaben, your thoughts and challenges and teaching techniques, and how do we relate, and then how there are I think over 60 maybe 69 70 centers, and most have parchalas. How do we get our message across to a broader audience? So maybe Kinjal, if you want to take some thoughts and ideas and share.
Sure. The slides you show, the first, we talked about the basics, right? The basic practices. So I think for middle school, for elementary and pre-middle school, practices where we should start them, right? Because they understand, they know what to do, they know what not to do. And as they go into upper middle school and high school, then we can talk about the core practices and how karma bondage occurs and how we can get rid of it. And I think it would make a little bit more sense to them. It is less complicated to them at that point. But for like younger kids, like 10, 11, like I have a 10-year-old, we would stress a little bit. Yes, we tell them why, but stress more on practices. So it becomes, like you say, hardwired while they're growing up, instead of, they're waiting to learn if they understand. Because nowadays it's like, okay, if it makes sense to me, I'll do it, or I won't. So that concept is also, the new generation is, you have to tell them a why before they do it. So they always want a why. There is a why. Before, first growing up, we were like, okay, this is how it's supposed to be done. But now we have to give a why. So it's a great way. All the whys were mostly answered in your presentation, and we can use the help of the Jain Path book to answer those questions.
So it's really interesting. So for the younger generation, you have to answer whys. And then for the older generation, I find we have to answer, how does it relate to the scriptures? Where was it? Where does it say in the scriptures that we should be doing service, or we should be doing forgiveness? So in fact, there's a whole set of slides, and I'm going to share my screen again, and I'm going to just run through the whole thing to to give you a sense that, and these are all available to just look at. Vegetarian, where in the scriptures does it say that to be vegetarian? Its meaning, and then also science and health benefits. Forgiveness, Tattva Sutra 7.6 says, I forgive all creatures. It says it 2,000 years ago. That's where it says, asking what does it mean, and then the scientific benefits from there. And then how does anger, same thing, compassion, the scriptures and how it relates to that. Service, we talked about 5.21, Tattva Sutra, how it relates to that. And then for all of the other practices that one can do. So where does it say alcohol in Jainism? What does it do? Alcohol stupefies the mind. One whose mind is stupefied forgets piety. So it's in the scriptures that we can work and relate to. So there's lots of resources available. But yeah, so that's one great idea that Kinjal, I think having words and practices that the youth and the young middle school ages can relate to. Yeah. What else?
I would like to add a couple things. I know last time we talked about some points. I don't want to repeat them, but one other thing was I noticed that many teachers did during, especially during COVID times when Pathshala went virtual, and most teachers have a hard time engaging the attention of kids throughout the class, right? Sometimes it's at least an hour. I know most Pathshalas do a couple hours if they're doing every other week or once a month. So it's hard to engage their attention throughout. So some of the practices I found teachers is role playing for younger kids, like pre-elementary. They use puppets to tell a story. Then they did kind of a scavenger hunt around the house if you're doing virtual Pathshala. And scavenger hunt included like Jain things like upkarans or things around the house. So something teaching at the same time playing, teach with play. We also had a few teachers, I know for Falguni Bain and we did projects in class with our high school kids. One of them was, we gave them piggy banks, and we told them like throughout the year, help your parents. And every time we would tell the parents to give them money in coins, not like a big amount. It can be a dime, it can be a penny, it can be a quarter. So every time they helped their parents in chores, they got some amount of money from parents. They collected it throughout the year. And at the end of the year, all the kids brought their hard-earned money, and we went to this animal sanctuary where they adopted animals, kind of where they paid for the food for the entire month. So it was a very fulfilling experience. The kid got to see it. And when we shared this online on the USA Partial Teachers, I know like 3 or 4 sons who did this project. So such activities, I think, connects to the kids a lot more, and something they can do. So we also did projects like interview a Jain person, and talk about how they practice Jainism and how hard it was. Some people came 40 years ago, so how their practices changed when they came from India to here. So that was a wonderful project. All our kids loved it. They did a video recording like a professional. So it was fun. It was a great idea that worked. We play Pictionaries also in class. With some Jain word, we would say like, how would you do karma, So kids would draw this soul and draw like dots and show the arrows. So Pictionary books, debates are a really good way to engage high schoolers and middle schoolers. I'm not sure how elementary kids would be good with debates, but I know middle and high schoolers are pretty good at that. And they love to debate with us, right? As teachers, they love to argue with us. So that's one way they'll learn a lot. One last thing I wanted to show you is because some of you might know it. Can I share my screen, Manojji? Can I come?
Yes, you have.
Okay.
You should be able to do it. So these are great ideas. It's hard to put them into action unless there's a strategic plan that a group of teachers put together, and that's what we would really encourage Pathshala teachers, advocates to do, is to now begin to think strategically. This is a chance to listen and hear and being catalyst. But yes,
Can you
absolutely.
guys see my screen?
I can. Great.
So this is something
saw
new
this.
I found a couple of years ago, that YJ has this wonderful blog. And
Yep.
all our kids, it says, we print this out because we didn't have virtual Pathshala before, and now we don't either. So such a wonderful way of teaching kids. These
This is amazing.
resources are
Yep.
available to all. They teach Das Laksha and Disney characters. Our kids remember these 10 names at the back of their minds. Like, we didn't even have to teach them. This is Uttam Arja was straightforward. Every Disney character had a quality assigned based on the role they played in the movie. So kids love this. They relate to it. We had this Olaf, how he was content with his form and how he was. Pinocchio, self-restraint, Nemo, right? So
Yep.
all those things, I don't want to take too much time, but you guys can go online.
No, absolutely. So I think the central theme, again, making Jainism relatable is what is going to keep Jainism alive, the Jain values alive. I think that's something that we need to bring forth. And then there will be a time in their life when they're going to have to go back or they may go back and say, where did this all come from? And that's when the AAAs and the fourth theories will be there for them.
Dr. Jain.
Yes, please.
Sorry,
Please,
go ahead.
Yeah, no, I wanted to share like a few more activities that I conduct sometimes in our like a high school senior and junior class. So
Yes.
a lot of times I notice that our students are so much inclined towards science. They're like just fascinated by science, scientific advancements. A lot of times, depending upon the exposure of Jainism, they're like, okay, so why do we need Jainism? What is different about Jainism that offers, especially if we talk about mental health and this and that? So one of the activities that like I kind of let them do is like when I talk about profession, like their profession that they want to choose, roughly 50% of them want to go to like medical professions, some sort of medical profession. Some want to go to med school, some like other pharmacy, this and that. So like one activity that I do is that, can you give us a definition of stress from a medical science perspective? So I let them research on their own so I will give them as a homework, go research next time, just come back and discuss what they'll find. And then it's an amazing experience. As they start researching, they find that there is no comprehensive definition of stress in psychology or psychiatry. And even after 100 years of research, it's still a problem that we struggle with. Then after that, we like take them, like I give them some pointers from Jainism point of view. Can you come up with a definition? And then being able to define stress objectively from a Jain point of view, that can fit into a modern scientific theory as well. I think that shows them the connect, that the Jainism plugs the hole that there is out there in the modern medical science, and that connects them to Jainism. So that is one aspect.
Yep. Makes complete sense.
Yeah, and one other activity that I do is like oftentimes like when we teach 6 substances. So 6 substances, like you say, the dravyas, people find the words sometimes hard to comprehend, right? So doing a comparison with I'm an aerospace engineer by profession. So I love physics in a great detail. Like actually, I like to learn standard model of physics, this and that. So I've created like a comparison of 6 dravyas with actually standard model of physics that we have, and draw a parallel between them. And it's in one of the videos that we created in Stress Academy as well. So I think that showing that comparison kind of makes them feel relatable as well.
Excellent thoughts and ideas and stuff.
I just wanted to add something. As like Kinjal said, the YJ has the young minds, and they had one time article Wizard of Oz comparing with like 5 achar, and I did that in my class. That was also very wonderful. And as you said about connecting to like our original proof, so a couple of times we, like every other year we do, I present like Uttaradan Sutra, the Svekalik Sutra, and there with the story, I just let's put all the principle where it comes from. So then they kind of see like this all like, it has like proof, and they kind of have more faith in it after that way. So we do that way.
Yeah.
We also, so we also like present Jainism is not that only old or you just read in the history only, but like currently who are our big Jain leaders and what they have done. And so that also kind of inspires them, and it kind of makes them connection that this is also possible in this time and day. So these are the different things we yeah, another thing like so the Walk With Me book about like Gautam Swami's his narration about him being with the Mahavir Swami, and that book is written in such a like a way that as if he's right now like talking to us, so we take like one chapter from that one, and then the students read it and then they discuss it. So that
Can you
book we
share
have
the
done.
name of the book?
Yeah, sorry, which book is that?
The Walk With Me by Acharya Chandanaji and Vastupal from Canada. Yeah, Vastupal Canada. So that book has like Anekandvat chapter, and there like Gautam Swami says, oh, this is how Bhagwan taught me, or this is what the story is. And as if like, oh yeah, you know, that person was there. The way it says like very casual way. And sometimes I think it looks like funny, but it kind of, you know, it's not like big, like, you know, word that they think like, oh, this is too foreign for me. So that's how they kind of connect with that one. Yeah.
Okay.
Excellent.
Great.
Great.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Other thoughts, Kinjal, or then Pritesh and Pradeep Bhai also. Pritesh, did you want to add some more?
Sure.
Before you speak, can I finish something, Pritesh?
Yes,
before you,
please. Yeah.
Besides, I know I shared the two articles, but do you guys know about the magazine the YJ has, the Younger Minds? So it has, we kind of print it out and give it to the kids. But let me show you real quick. I'm just going to take a minute of your time.
Please.
So this is some of the articles. Is wonderful, full of animation. And so this was an act of kindness challenge. It has a story always that goes with it. And then we give these challenges as homework to our kids. So like, hey, did you do this activity at the end? They also have talked about, remember last time Dr. Jain mentioned about intention of how it matters, the iceberg underneath. So this is the way they presented the anime, like the graphics and stories, how they understand and stuff. So it's easy for kids just to read and get the gist of what he's speaking. And the terms used are very relatable to them. The stories used are very relatable. These are not traditional Jain stories of kings and devs and devis. They're stories they can relate to in everyday life. One other was, I know this was one of my favorite articles, Kashai with the help of emojis, right? Kids love emojis. They text all day long. So it was a wonderful way they came up with it. Amazing article. We had used this in the past with our kids. And Kashai made a little bit more sense to them when they looked at it from this point of view. This is a funny one, the greed they have.
Yeah.
It is more relatable to them because of the a similar age group of the kids. They are born and raised here. They are struggling with the same challenges, and they came up with the solutions after learning it. So our kids can learn a lot from these kids.
Yeah, YJ kids have done a great job. Yeah.
So please, have all these magazines are on their website. Please go ahead, go to them, use what you can in your class. A little bit of prep kind of goes a long way. So I would recommend at least a 30-minute meeting every week with your co-teachers to have a plan about what you're going to teach instead of just going and starting. This is a prep plan, so it benefits the kids more, and at the same time you are more comfortable as well. You get more out of the class. This is all I had to share for today. So I will give
amazing. I think probably the most significant thing is the prep plan. If teachers have a prep plan, and they can get from the experience of other teachers who have done it, that's amazing, and that's really good. Great. Pritesh, your thoughts and comments, and then Pradeep.
We talked a lot about the content, discussed what should be taught, how should be taught. I think one of the things, as a physicians, we're always taught this: do no harm. We are always told, do no harm. What does that mean? When you're treating the patients, do make sure that what you're doing is not going to hurt them. Now, how does that apply to teaching kids? Many times what happens is we are so focused on finishing the syllabus, or sometimes we don't even know, and our insecurity plays a role, or sometimes kids are doing a lot of musty, really, so our behavior should not reflect negativity, because kids most likely are going to retain only 15 to 20% of what we teach. But what they will remember is the emotions, how they felt in the class. So it's so very important that our demeanor, when we talk with them, we should not be focused so much on syllabus. It's okay if we miss a class, if same topic lasts for 2 or 3 classes, but making them feel good, comfortable, happy. And those who are doing a lot of masti, or even them, actually those are the kids, once you tap into their energy, they're going to be the best student later on. And I've experienced that over and over. So addressing their emotions, because they are probably facing something. So to be a little bit of psychologist, and Jainism teaches us to be a psychologist. So addressing that comes first, and then teaching comes second. And that will come if we ourselves are working on practicing Jainism in our life from the core. So just keeping a little bit of attention to that part, keeping overviewing yourself, watching yourself as a third person to see how we're doing, getting feedback from your core teachers. Sometimes we are angry at them, sometimes we're loud, sometimes we're doing things which we don't intend to, but it may happen. And that memory, that it was not a pleasant experience, that I've seen too many kids, not kids anymore, adults, young adults, who are not interested in coming to temple or joining because they have these bad emotions attached to it. So to have good emotions attached to Pathshala, even if they do not really learn a lot, because later on that will bring them back and they will learn a lot when they're ready for it.
Very, very important lesson, and very well said. I think that's really important to keep in mind. Good. I know Pradeep Bhai wanted to hear your thoughts. Yeah, you can go ahead. The voice is not coming across.
Can you see me now?
Yes, now we can hear you also.
Okay. Yeah. I represent two different aspects. I'm going to represent two different aspects. One is an administrator as a Pathshala, and one is an adult class. For younger kids from age, whatever consider your 3 to, we are very successful in like toddler to age 13. After that is definitely challenging. Then the teens go to school. But to engage over the last 20 years, 25 years, what we have done, different activities, like 4 different play we did it. Darsna wrote 3 of the plays where it involves more characters, not there are lead roles. We put 15 different stories and connect to each other, like Life to Liberation. There was a one title. And last time we adopted a script from Boston Sun, Karmic Forces from New England, absolutely phenomenal. And so one of the teachers shared me the whole copy. The advantage of those play and skits are where you involve 90 kids in one play. With the 90 kids, we involve 30 different volunteers, parents, because we need a 1.5 hour production. We did 4 major production like this. So that has been successful. Group Ashprakari Puja has been a very superb feature of all these years. This year, this is our like 23rd year we are in a Group Ashprakari Puja, successful. And puja clothes were optional. So you don't have one photo only. And people who have puja clothes, they can go to the real murti. So I think all the little kids below 12, they are excited to come. This year we had 60. So I think different activities like these keeps us going further and further. And challenges are there because kids want to come, parents don't want to bring them. So that's a standard challenge everybody's facing. I have talked to so many other administrators and Pathshala. This is a common challenge. And I think the parents are role model. Only thing, it should be role model. What happened? Parents are staying outside in the lobby and kids go to Pathshala. Parents don't know the name of 5 Vrat and we expect our kids to know. So I think our job should be parallelly concentrating to young adults. I've been coordinating adult class for 24 years. In the beginning, I had a very successful young adults who were English speaking audience. So my mode of instruction was English all the time. For last 3-4 years, somehow I'm losing that group people. And what I do in the adult class, I take a one textbook and how I connect to the modern way. like give an example. I did a Pandit Suklalaji's life.
Yeah.
He was a very profound Jain scholar. He became blind at the age of 16. And I connected the whole theory of karma. That kind of people understood how the theory of karma works. Even he had a Chakshudarshavanya karma, but Gnanavanya karma was positive. I mean, he was able to get rid of it. So I think the more you have to connect the kids in a different activities, and that is the teaching them. And our younger kids, teachers are very innovative. Most of them are. And up to level 5, age 14, we are successful in a project.
And then after that, you lose them.
Well, I did teenager.
The teenagers.
I think they throw a challenge for you to get kind of re-equipped.
Darshna said something we can't hear.
Darshna, you go ahead.
No, see, no, the challenge in my class is because like high school, they have SAT class. They are all Sunday morning.
Cool.
So,
Actually, great. I want to close up with these thoughts and or at least conversation. The past 2 weeks, what we did was we piloted something. It was a pilot of and truly Kinjal, Pradeep Bhai, Darshna Ben, Vitesh have been phenomenal in trying to put us together to have a conversation about where we would like to see Pathshala go and how do we learn. And we don't want to, well, I'll open it up. Where do we go from here? What should we be doing? Are these conversations beneficial, and to scale them up? And I'll caveat this whole thing. It's really challenging because of everyone's time, and especially Pathshala teachers, because they're young parents. They got soccer practice, SAT practice. They've got, relating to their work and timelines, deadlines, and so forth. But how do we scale up these conversations? I really also, how do we help Pathshala teachers prep? And how do we hardwire, institutionalize some of this? Maybe the last 10 minutes from our group guidance, and this is our guidance I will take to the long range planning committee, which is very invested in this process. And they asked me to pilot this as well. So I'll share our experience, but I'm open and we're all open. And this is folks can guide Pradeep Bhai and Darshna Ben and Kinjal and Pritesh and ourselves on how to do this. Thoughts, comments from folks?
I think the one idea that I shared with you, Manoj, about developing a poster like an infographic.
Yes,
yes,
definitely.
That we can put in every home.
Yeah.
Every Pathshala, every
Temple,
place.
Yeah.
I think it'd be very, very, very useful. And the other is.
And Edwin and I are on that and brainstorming on how to do it. So that's
and I
definitely doable.
Yeah, I love to help you with that because I'm,
absolutely.
I can bring maybe some value to that as well. So I think that'll be good.
Yeah. So other thoughts on how do we go ahead, Pradeep Bhai? Yeah, we can't hear you. I think you're
Can you hear me now?
No,
Okay.
Much better. Yes.
Kinjal mentioned about the younger minds. I think maybe any person, Kinjal has done a lot of reading on younger minds. I have done here and there, not a whole lot. We need to find out which articles are really best and compile something. If there's a karma article in the last issue and issue before that, we can put it a kind of a compilation on our e-file, because that would really help, because I think they are phenomenal written.
Yes, very relatable.
We can work on that. We can come up with a plan to, categorize or at least describe what topics are covered in the magazine.
Excellent. But Manoj Bhai, it wouldn't help you and me because we wouldn't know all the frozen characters, okay? Let me tell you that. Okay.
We won't know them, but actually it will make us go back and watch the watch the movies. So what do people think about how having some level of Pathshala teacher training? Kinjal, we talked a little bit about that. What do you, because this is just 2 or 3 centers that we piloted, right? We didn't ask California, we didn't ask Atlanta. They want to do this.
New
They
Jersey
had
also is a big center.
New Jersey, New York, the entire Boston. We just kept it to centers that you were aware of and stuff, and we saw the challenges. And how do we package some of these, and how do we sustain? Maybe like a hour and a half session every 3 months, or something of that time that will bring people together to share best practices. Even that, and I think Pritesh's point is spot on. You want to make Pathshala a good experience for children, but you want to make this training session, whatever we want to call it, for teachers, a good experience. You know, food always works, but on the internet, food can't work. What do people think?
Pictures.
We can always
Can
show
I share
pictures.
some?
Yeah, please.
So
yeah, we have a few minutes. So
over the summer, we launched a Pathshala this is for Jain Center Boston, a Pathshala teachers training, and we made it mandatory that you have to have 10 hours of continued education. And the first few, and we have a whole plan that I'll share with this team, just so you have one reference point on this and why we want to do this. And we got overwhelmingly positive response. And the reason, obviously, we did this, we found that teachers are all over the place in how they explain even, you know, the same thing. And that I don't think is a healthy thing. We need to be super structured. And I did a fair amount of research on how Sunday schools teach. One thing that came constantly across is structured teaching makes a huge difference. And sure, it's good to do plays and other things, but their contribution to learning and structured reading is not as much. And I know we spend a lot of time in those other things, and we think it's great for socialization and all, but we may want to rethink the ratio of time that we spend on one versus the other. So I'll share more on these later. We have some slides and so on that we've put together, and I'll share with this team, just so you have one reference as we try to put together a more overall a better teachers training plan.
So I'm hearing something really unique here, which is, one, there is this whole idea that content development, real, need for that content development, taking young Jains, taking Jain Path, some of those ideas, Jain Way of Life, taking the e-library, right? That's great. So that's at one level. So content. The other is getting the agents, individuals who take that content and fit it into and put it into and relate it to our children. You and I can't do it for the thousands of young Jains across the country, but we can get it to those teachers. And so that requires training, and that requires them. And in order to train, we have to create a platform for engagement. And if I were to say that one of the critical elements is going to be some type of platform for engagement, and your pilot in Boston, Jürgen, will be very useful to see. Are other centers willing to invest and say, I'm sorry, unless you do 10 hours of training and then you do 2 hours every 3 months of retraining and engaging, you cannot teach. I wonder if that's something that we can advocate as a team, of group of people. I see Kinjal smiling and laughing. Kinjal?
We have, I come from a smaller son before, so Falguni in high. We have a hard time finding teachers to do that.
That's right.
If
That's
we
right.
put a 10-hour requirement, they're gonna back out. I think most of them are like, okay, no, thank you. So we have that. I know Houston Pathshala, I recently joined a couple months ago when we moved here. I'm not sure how things, I guess Paulani and Mayuri, they are from the Houston Pathshala. They would be able to shed some light on it. If teachers are, how much effort and willingness are the teachers of that sung putting in the Pathshala? Paulani, you want to say something about this?
I'm sorry, I got a call, so I joined in the middle, so I don't know.
Okay, no
what the
worries. Go
question
ahead.
is.
Mayuri?
Yes, Kinjal. I think 4 years back when I joined Pathshala, we didn't have any training session or anything. But you must be aware, we have 3 teachers in one class. So we usually have one senior teacher and or two. When I joined, 2 senior teachers, and I was the new one. So while getting exposure, seeing them, observing them, taking the class, and especially my class kids are very small, 7 to 8 years. So it was more challenging for me to come to that level and make them understand about the kashai and good things and bad things, and about the good, you collect good karmas, bad karmas. So I had to come little down, and now I'm comfortable. Yes, I think training is definitely helpful, as
From
Yogendra
your
was
previous
saying.
Mm.
Yes,
Yeah.
Kinjal?
Manojji, I had
Go
a
ahead.
point.
Yeah. Just Mayuri Ben is just finishing. Yeah. So training is
Sorry.
beneficial, and then
Yes,
please.
training is definitely Yogendra bhai helpful, but it all depends on age of the kids also.
Yeah.
Your point about the meditation
sure.
is useful for the kids going to high school. Might be like for smaller kids, it might be out of box thing. So it all depends on the age of the kids we are teaching.
Sure.
Absolutely. Great. A couple of other comments. I think someone had one.
I had it.
Yeah, please,
Manojji.
Pritesh, go ahead.
So one of the things that we noticed when I was a coordinator up in Virginia, that Jaina books, because everybody uses Jaina books, they are not good enough to teach, or even for the teacher to understand. So if we can actually revamp the books itself, the books themselves, if we change the books, change the curriculum, change the content, I know it will be a huge deal, but if we do that, that'll give a platform, because not everybody, like the challenge that we faced in Virginia, saying finding a teacher. They may still be working 10 hours, so they're doing continued training, but the moment you make it a formalized structured thing that they have to do it, I was literally begging and calling. If I saw somebody who was interested or who had that potential, I would call and repeatedly call, and I would convince and coerce and do all kinds of things into getting them into teaching. But if we have this platform that they can easily access, which is easy to understand, and then there are links that they can directly go from there, like there's a QR scanner code in there, let's say, for example, and they directly go to the further explanation online, wherever it is stored. And so it's so much easier for them. The easier the access, it becomes much more easier for them to teach, understand, learn, and willingness to actually go ahead and even spend time on these kind of classes. But if they're like, their syllabus is tied to Jaina books and we are teaching something else, then they are like, I'm not sure where should I spend time. Should I spend time here, or spend time completing my syllabus in Jaina book? So if we can do that, it will be much bigger challenge. But I think if we do that, that will truly change the fabric of our pathshalas here.
Sure, great. Our time has come, a good hour and a half discussion. Let me just make some closing thoughts and remarks, and then what we can go from here potentially. So several other centers, Atlanta, Northern California, Boston, others have they want their pathshala teachers to be involved, engaged in these conversations. So that those are potential areas, and then other teachers as well. What I'm hearing really important is that the need for a platform and the need for the content as well, and the platform for the teaching and the content for developing, where the Jaina Pathshala books, as Pritesh said, don't meet our needs. So where do we go from here? I believe we have resources Vitika is there, Edwin is there to help us to think through. There is the Arhant Academy. There's also the education, Jaina Education Committee, which we are all engaged in part with. And in fact, tonight, there's a conversation that's happening as well. So my thoughts are that over the next couple of months, let's brainstorm, let's think about bringing the platform and the content, and how do we move these ideas further? I mean, this is a long range activity, and then we're completely in it. So
I have
yes.
one last point before. So
Yes, please.
Prerit and I co-founded Stress Academy. Prerit actually wrote the book, and we used that. I mean, I used that to teach high school kids in Virginia for a year. So every 10-minute video lasted for an hour. I thought that covered the point so very well. That content was so useful. It was 7-minute video, but lasted for an hour to discuss everything. And using that in other Pathshala will really help the teachers have easy to use, ready-made video content with the script in there and have a discussion on that platform. It's all done. There are about 20 videos which can last you an entire year to teach. And Dr. I'm sorry, Yogendra Bhai is on the advisory board of Stress Academy, so he knows that very well.
Oh, those are excellent videos. Absolutely.
Yep. And I think that's where we need to be talking about, is bringing a lot of the content, but with it also the platform for communication of these things. So with that, thank you so much. We'll be in touch. Vitika will be in touch with many of you, as other sessions will also be there. And then certainly from leadership from Kinjal and Pritesh and Darshna Ben and Pradeep Bhai will sort of move forward and think. And if Darshna Ben, if you would like to help close with Namokar Mantra, and then we'll finish up. I think she is on mute. Otherwise, maybe then, okay. So Pritesh, would you like to do Namokar Mantra and we can close up? No, they're on. So go ahead, Darshna Ben, please.
Namo Arihantanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Ayaryanam, Namo Vachayanam, Namo Loe Savvasahunam, Eso Panchanamukaro, Savvapavapanasano, Mangalanancha Savvesim, Padamam Havai Mangalam, Kame Misavajive, Savve Jiva Kamantume, Mittime Savvabhuesu, Vairam Janake Shivamastu Sarva Jagata Parahita Nirata Bhavantu Bhutagana Dosha Prayantu Nasham Sarvatra Sukhi Bhavatu Loka Kame Misa Shivama Upasargakshayam Yanti Chidyante Vigna Vallaya Manha Prasannata Meti Pujamane Jineshware Sarva Mangala Mangalyam Sarva Kalyana Karanam Pradhanam Sarva Dharmanam Jainam Jayati Shasanam.
Jai Jinendra.
Jai Jinendra.
Thank you, everyone.
Good job, guys.
Thank you.
Jai Jinendra.
Wonderful experience. Thank you. Take care. Take care. Bye-bye.